Hello everyone, I'm Sequence 6, and today we're going to be doing a quick production walkthrough of my latest single, Ubuntu, which is featuring the amazing Kaylee Stallings. So yeah, we're just going to run through this track top to bottom. So we'll start off with Kaylee's vocal takes right here. Um, these were just recorded, sent over to me, and I didn't do a ton of processing on these.
Being noticed, being me. It was nothing like I expected. It was beautiful. I wouldn't change a thing.
Um, I'll show you the processing real quick. This is right here on vocals, Kaylee. So we have EQ. A lot of these are turned off, but I like to experiment and kind of decide as I go what works and what doesn't. Ultimately, it was a pretty simple EQ: boost in the highs, cut out the highest highs, cut out the lowest lows. Have RVox on, pretty heavily gated. And then we have a Ozone 9 imager. It's bringing out width in the S's and T's of her voice. And that's all. Then next up, we have a reverse of be out of the word being. Just adds depth and a smooth transition from not having her voice to having her voice right here.
Being noticed, being me.
As you can tell, it just adds a nice rise in energy. And then we also have these, which are really fun. It's actually my voice. I pitched it and put a ton of reverb and pitch correction. Moving along to the instruments and synths, this is a gorgeous pad that I called Laguna. It is really representative to me of that moment at dusk when I'm at Laguna Beach. It's such a beautiful place, and I love going down there. It's fairly close to LA, for anyone who does not know the geography of California. And so it really, to me, sounds like the moment of dusk where you can still see that orange kind of light in the sky from the sunset, but the darkness is starting to come up as well. And you're starting to feel the cold air, but you can still feel the warmth. And the high end grain in this tone of the actual sound really represents, for me, the waves crashing into the rocks. It's something that gives me a lot of peace, and so I wanted to include that as sort of the bridging of the frequency ranges between the bass and the rest of the synths. So this is what it sounds like. And it's a simple progression that follows the rest of the bass notes. It starts off as a 3-note progression, which is going to be F sharp, D, A, and then later along we have in the next MIDI file is going to be the main progression once we get to bar 53 and we get to the main theme of the song with Kaylee's vocals and all the emotions start to rise, which is where the radio edit starts. It's a 4-note progression, which is A, E, F sharp, D. And then this goes back up to A once you hit F sharp on the right before bar 16. And that just adds some nice variation and extra emotion. The main bass doesn't do that, but the pad does. Then we're going to go into this pluck, which is appropriately named Window Seal. It sounds like as cute as a seal. I absolutely love seals. Like I can't not have a smile on my face listening to that. Just like I can't not have a smile on my face watching a seal play. It's just like the cutest. So as you can see, there's definitely some ocean themes going on in this song, which is something that brings me a lot of peace, as I said before. The processing on this is really magical. If I turn off the processing, it sounds really dull. But with the processing on, it sounds really bright and happy. And there's something about this simple progression of starting with an EQ, taking out the highest highs, lowest lows, a resonant frequency. I don't like those often. I don't like the sounds of like tinnitus in tones. It's just kind of gross with bell plucks like this. So I took it out, yeah, at minus 25 decibels. So it's quite a lot that's dipped. But then we are able to add some reverb, which is going to bring a little bit of that kind of like ringiness back out. So dipping before the reverb is really helpful because then you're not like compensating for a ton of extra reverberation that's happening. You've done the dip before, then it's only reverberating the frequencies that exist anymore. And Valhalla Vintage Verb is such a clean reverb, especially on the color now. But you can choose 70s, 80s, or now. And honestly, I think they're all going to last forever. It's a fantastic reverb. And then the thing that really brings the sound to life is the Abbey Road TG mastering chain. Fantastic plugin. Love this thing. And so, yeah, that's the window seal pluck. As we move down, we've got some guitar samples from the original. And I just absolutely love these. These are full of little imperfections, and they sound like they're manipulating time. They sort of sound like a memory to me, and everything is very visually and emotionally representative in this song. Every element has its place and means something different to me. So yeah, these are great. These are super simple to make. I got a sample off of Splice um, of one single guitar strum. I think it had a couple notes in it, but it was still one sample, and then I pitch shifted it using this little pitch range that FL Studio comes with, and it's just in the built-in sampler, and then re-export it with some reverb and delay, and it sounds like this. Well, that's actually extra delayed. I automated the delay, so it should sound like this. And I think like you'll hear in a lot of movies, people have those like reverse pianos or reverse guitars, and it's just like I don't know, it's like so like heart wrenching. So I was like, oh, that's easy to do. Let me do that, and it just brought everything to life. And then I just used it from the original demo. I didn't change a thing, just like Kaylee says, I wouldn't change a thing. So we're gonna move into the Key 4050 guitar, appropriately named because I tried to replicate the exact sound that John O'Callaghan and Brian Carney used in Alka, their Key 4050 project. They've done some really cool tracks and used some very interesting instruments. So I thought, you know, after I wrote the MIDI for this, I was like looking for kind of like a guitar-ish sound. This is a pluck from Sylenth that I manipulated and processed pretty heavily, but I think I got it pretty close to that sound, and it complements the other elements in this song. But the MIDI for this over here is way cooler. Yeah, so it has some variation. It's really nice. Lots of delay on ping pong. It's going left and right. I can show you. I just use the FL Studio delay usually for that. Sounds great to me. And then a filter, an EQ that's super simple, just cutting the lowest lows and lowest lows and highest highs. A fruity reverb. It sounded good. Still sounds good. Fresh air boosting a ton of the mid-air, 70%. That is a lot. I never really used this that harshly, but this just sounded dull. And then blood overdrive. I mean, it's a lot of processing. Then stereo width. If I turn that processing off, you'll be able to hear what it sounds like without it. I mean, that's so different. But processing with intention, that's always the key, because you can easily overdo it if you're not like intent and mindful of what you're doing. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Try not to overthink it, but also experiment and try new things and just keep going until it clicks. And if it's not going to click, just change the sound. Better to let a sound shine than to manipulate it to hell and then have something grainy and awful. But heavily processing that worked really well. We've got our bells. Love these. They are so shiny. No processing on those, just as the sample was. Leads, really, really, really simple. Beautiful progression. They have some graininess in the high end that's actually really pleasant to me. A lot of saturation. Sorry, this cursor has a mind of its own today. It's jumping around the piano roll. There we go. So yeah, that's the main lead progression when you get into the main part of the track. But ultimately, it's still following the same chord progression, same general upper notes. And yeah, it's only one sound. It comes from Spire. Most of the sounds in this come from Spire, honestly. Most of the sounds in most of my tracks come from either Sylenth or Spire, with the occasional Serum. Massive, I think, was in Everything to Me and Carpe Diem, but I don't know if I've used it since, honestly. But yeah, this is the sound. It's really nice. I automated the cutoff, as you can see, automated a sidechain because I only wanted a sidechain when the kick was playing. And there's an extra filter for the end, so it just fades out pleasantly. Moving into our kick drum. Super, super, super simple. I wanted to sound acoustic, so I layered it. We've got 2 layers on that kick drum. I will show you as soon as I can open the mixer. It is the body of the kick, which is just the low and mids. So this was the original EQ because I thought I was only going to have one sample, but it turned out that I wanted to actually dip even more of the highs and replace it with another sample. So I dipped all the highs at 2013 hertz, and then I added in a new sample and I boosted it to all hell at 685 hertz, and also again at 700. 1712.6 hertz. Usually I don't read the hertz though. I don't know why I'm doing that today. I go by A6 or F5. I may not have any musical theory knowledge, though I've probably learned it along the way, and I think of all my melodies as I go and just literally hear them in my mind and then write them down. Um, but it's easy for me to think of things as the note itself. So FabFilter is my favorite EQ. Because of that, I can just type in F5. I'm like, I hear a sound I don't like. I'm like, okay, that's F5. I'm going to dip it. In this case, if I hear a sound I like, it's F5. I'm going to boost it because I want that woody tone in the mids. And F5 just sounded right. Plus 8.38 dB, and yeah, sounded great. So that melded those 2 samples together to create one kick, but not quite enough. I wanted to boost a little bit more of that mid-high oomph, almost at 4K, which is usually a frequency I don't like, especially in synths. So I kind of dip it in synths and then boost it in kicks and drums because that'll accommodate, or just leave it as it is in the sample, because oftentimes people want a lot of that. It adds clarity, but I like my clarity to come from up here or a little bit lower sometimes. So yeah, it just depends. But in this song, wanting to sound a little acoustic, I went for that. Then we're gonna have the bass lines. 2 layers. There's a sub and a mid. And the sub bass is really simple processing. Compressor, a very simple EQ. I dipped these frequencies because I wanted that part of the kick to shine through, and a sidechain. And then for the mid bass, if I can get this to stop playing. Sorry, my CPU is a little bit high right now. Trying to run OBS Studios to record this and also FL Studio to actually get the project to cooperate can be a little difficult sometimes. Um, okay, there we go. Got it to stop. I'm actually going to drag this back so that there's not as much being processed at once. But yes, those are the mids. They're very small and kind of background. They have a stereo enhancer, just splitting the frequencies a little bit, widening the top end. And then, I mean, it really only is mid highs and highs. So probably widening basically everything that's even there, and a sidechain. And then after that, we have the percussion to go over and the effects. So let's go back into the main section, the arrangement rather. And we'll scroll down, go over the percussion. So first things are the clap fills. These work in coordination with each other, a reverby one and a dry one. Sorry, I forgot that I muted everything except the bass on the mixer. Let's try that again. Really simple. Panned right and left, so just a little bit so it adds some depth. These are my ear candy things. I really like those. There's a replica of one of the sounds that comes later, but I wanted to move a copy of it back because I felt like it was necessary in this section. Most of these don't have much processing. This loop that I appropriately named Woods reminds me of a level on Pac-Man, specifically the PS2 version. I kind of grew up playing that in like middle school, and there's a level where you have to take Pac-Man through this like trampoline filled woods. It's called Bedoing Woods, like bedoing on a trampoline. I thought it was really funny, and I loved that level. It was probably like my favorite in the entire game, and so I'd play it all the time. And the background of that reminds me of the soundtrack to that level. So I thought appropriately naming it that. This is the coolest element in the entire track. This is a clap that I recorded live in Arches National Park. I was on a road trip with my family, and I thought, I got to record something in here. I got to sample something, and so I wanted a natural reverb for a clap. So I just set my phone down on the rocks in one of the arches, clapped my hands until I got the best take, and then everything that you hear is completely natural. There was no manipulation to the actual sample itself at all. Um, then we have our hi-hat loop, panned right and left, give it movement and width, shakers, and then another loop. So the only other element of percussion is the snare, and it is really, really, really nice. I love this tone. It comes from the Dave Parkinson pack, the original one. I have all of them, but the original one has some of the best snares in my opinion. So yeah, very simple. It comes back in over here and adds a lot of rhythm. I can play that with the percussion so that you can hear what it's doing. I really love this snare rhythm. It came to me so easily, and I was like, that's so different than anything I've done. I have to use this. Yeah, I absolutely love that. So then moving into the effects, this is the last area of the song. We have some from the original demo. This includes a sample that claims to be a hawk. I'm not sure. It sounds a little digital to me, but it worked and reminded me enough of a hawk that I used it. That is not the hawk sample. The hawk sample's right here, but it's all one stem, and these are really cool elements, so I thought I'd show them. This is the supposed hawk screech. But it sounds a little digital to me, so I don't think it actually is. But either way, it's hawky enough. Then we've got our main impacts. These are really nice. We've got an extra air on the main impact. And then we have these, which have a vintage phaser on them. They kind of sound like they're going to make me like fall over, like equilibrium issues on their own. But in the song, they sound really pleasant. And then we have a quick riser and a quick crash. And that crash just cuts through the mix so nicely. And really the intention with the production decisions in this song, like always, is to make everything really personal. And really intentional and mindful. I think if I'm not working that way, the song doesn't ever see the light of day. But to be more technical, but not really, because I'm not about to use any technical mumbo jumbo from music production. I'm actually going to talk about food and say this song is kind of similar to sushi. You want to let the element shine on its own, or the ingredient shine on its own. So, for me, I really like a good classic like tuna sushi. So it's just the tuna, a little bit of wasabi, white rice, a little bit of soy sauce. And it's the same intentions here. Anything that is a main frontal element for your ears is not that heavily processed, other than that guitar. But that's really just being manipulated into the kind of sound that you're hearing. before it doesn't even sound remotely close to what it sounds like after it's processed. But I just wanted all these ingredients to shine as they are, or as they are intended to be. And I think that that's the most important thing as a composer, is to make those decisions based off of your whole heart and your whole intentions, and not really being too worried about what other people will think or say, or what production techniques are supposed to be. So hopefully you found this informative, interesting, and helpful. And yeah, I hope that you all love Ubuntu just as much as me and Kaylee do. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Ciao.